is going to be one of a series of videos roundabout within the category of typology, in particular the popular typologies of the day. A great number of you may have, to a lesser or greater degree, an idea, have had an overview of a typology system. That is, a typology system is a method of, really a tool of placing certain, we can say, colorations of personalities, as they're called, into various categories. Throughout time, and I mean that quite literally, throughout time, for thousands of years, various typologies have been convenient, some may say blatantly obvious. Take as an example Aristotle, and we may even go prior to he. When we think of the four temperaments that are widely known, then we go somewhat further in time to Carl Jung, who created the categorization of personalities, or to be more accurate, I don't like the term personality types, psyche types. And they were placed in terms of their functional strengths and functional weaknesses. And when I say functional, I need to be very clear that the idea of functions has, not only in terms of the language such are described, but they are of a, we may say, and please bear with me, they have a metaphysical nature. Not that they're metaphysical in as much as we know now, to a certain extent. There are certain people who claim to be able to see the differences between various specific types of personality, but as well as the deviations from the norm, so to speak. So we won't be looking at this stage at the scientific or neuroscientific basis of these. So Jung was attempting to create a typology, which was actually, he wrote very little about the psyche types, that is the 8 types that are separated quite obviously within the 4 temperaments, phlegmatic, so on and so on. It was rather an open system, in the 1950s we had the 2 people who are by the names of Myers and Briggs, but in fact were Myers and Myers, and they specifically illustrated a picture of these 8 types, and the particular categories, we can split them into 2. The sensory are 50% of them on paper, and intuitives are the other half, right? So we have the functions, which you would probably, most people when they learn the Myers-Briggs, and that is the most popular, as far as I can tell, at least in the West, the most popular form of typology, of creating a lens on how the various psyche types behave, what they tend, the holes they tend to roll into, so to speak, right? So you have the intuitives, and you have the sensory. The intuitives, to simplify things, they will be more abstract. They will, the Myers-Briggs will say that they are forwards thinking, but that is that is actually not necessarily true, or rather the way in which they project into the future or the past, again, are related to the functions. The, you'll find within the intuitives many scientists, though the main interest for them is the uh, the the abstract, the at times we say metaphysical, the lit, literature, the literary world. Not to say that there isn't a relation to concrete reality, but that the concrete reality has as much giving on them. Then you have the sensory types, which I need to point out are not, I say the sensory and intuitive. Now, the Myers-Briggs will say that they don't tend to be interested in the so-called stuff of the intuitives, the theory. They're not firstly and foremost, they're not theory based. But that isn't to say there won't be an interest in it. We're talking in generalities here, right? Typically, they won't. Now, I've said that on paper, 50% sensory, and it's a sensory focusing on what is happening, event after event, not naturally. They'll worry about events perhaps, but they won't be experiencing or attempting to connect with a future occurrence. On the other hand, they will very often be archivists. Some of this, particularly the types, and I will go into the functions shortly, quite possibly in the video that follows. Those with, as far as my studies show, the introverted sensation, which we can say is a very bodily sensation, is as well as it of course, as it has something to do with the nervous apparatus, they will be aware of the details, and thus those with a very many. I'm not going to say well developed, but I prefer to say many dimensional introverted sensation will be the pretty decent police officers, and if you think about it, they will fall into areas of scientific inquiry. Perhaps they would be music teachers. Also, the SI or introverted sensation valuing types may or may not come across as conventional. It's, of course, the family upbringing has a huge giving on things, a much larger giving on things that the pop typology of MBTI, as useful and as illuminating as it is, really pays credence to. We can say traditionally, and this actually adheres to MBTI and a proponent, albeit not a functionally interested or invested author investigator, David Kersey, Senior. Junior is still alive. That musical aptitudes will be connected with those who value introverted sensation. I will get on to why some functions are valued and not at a later, perhaps a much later time. It is actually one of the most important things, because what is unvalued in terms of the 4 to 8 functions, whether there are 4, whether there are 8, whether there are 2, that's a matter of simplicity. It's a matter of which form you're going to focus on. I'll be focusing on not only MBTI, but socionics, which is rather a complex though of course not complex enough, answer to MBTI, and you have a even more, we can say, an even more abstract form of function, sort of function typology, which the Russian, it's a Russian and Eastern European form, as is socionics, psyche yoga. It's so of the two, we the three are flexible, each in its own way. I'm not going to go into the neuroscience part of this. I may do at a far later date, because it really does, really in a way, it elucidates upon the ideas, but it also confuses them. So, you you the oddly, of the three types of typologies, psyche yoga, which is actually on the surface it is dynamic, in that you can see how a more elaborate specifics, and that people aren't really categorized within, we can say, what types of employment or types of education, that there, and also that there are subtype is the type, as in there are so many, about 36 types, and they will differ in specific levels of the psyche yoga functions. I'm not an expert on psyche yoga, but there will be a way to correlate socionics, which is, we can say it is psyche yoga and other forms, as well as the Jungian, the more rawly Jungian typology, within an MBTI type lens. What the socionics has its own codes rather. Usually 3-letter, 2-letter, and they can be rather esoteric, and well, as much as proponents and those who are paid for their work within socionic research would perhaps try to whitewash the esoteric roots of socionics. But they're there far more than MBTI. As much as MBTI claims to be Jungian, it is, in one ways, it is trying to do far too much, and on the other hand, in terms of functions, far too little. So MBTI, with exceptions of various scholars within and writers within MBTI, not dynamic. And the profiles, as there really isn't a space for subtype, unless you have MBTI plus neuroscience, which I'm not going to go into for very obvious reasons. It isn't dynamic. Socionics will always have within its type descriptions specifics on that there can be exceptions, and there also are clear subtypes, 2 subtypes. Some socionics professors and writers will say there are more than 2 subtypes. Take into account that there are 4 really valued functions: conscious, unconscious functions. So, there's something of an introduction. I don't know how long this video has gone on for, but this is also going to be it's also a camera test. This is actually maybe the first time I've used, as you can see, there's I've got the audio recording framework on the camera. It is also a test of Linux recording programs. So, as we seasoned broadcasters, and you love me saying that, don't you? As we seasoned broadcasters who don't enjoy washing bottles, I want to do. This is going to be a signpost. So the next video will be on one of the 8, we can even say 16 types, right? Yeah, the 16 types. Why I slipped up and said 8 rather than 16? Well, that wasn't entirely accidental. Who in socionics we call Hamlet, David Kersey would call them the educator or actor. I call them the serpent. I mean that so affectionately. I'm of course going to point out why in vivid detail which types tend to be under closer scrutiny. Cunts. Yeah, I said cunts. I didn't say cunts. This one is very well known, very well observed, because they tend to be actors. The extroverted feeling, introverted sensing, creative. The actor, the shell that has a smile for everybody. But don't turn your back on them, right? It's been a pleasure.